Australian Aviation Podcast, the official podcast of Australian Aviation, unpacking the latest insights, developments and issues impacting Australia's aviation sector.
Hello everybody, my name is Adam Thorne and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. Unfortunately, I've not been able to secure a job elsewhere in the last week, so I've had to sully myself back on this show with my usual co-host, Jake Nelson. Jake, how are you? I can't believe we're doing this again.
I know, despite your best efforts, Adam.
Well, in order to ease the pain of having to deal with you, I've brought in our semi-regular guest, sort of 5% Australian aviation reporter, 95% reporter of Defence Connect, which is they're another brand in the momentum media world. They sit next to us. They're not as good as us, to be honest. It's a bit rubbish, but we like to take pity on them sometimes and invite them in. We've got Robert Dougherty here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Adam. And I like to think that you guys have like the lame aircraft, whereas we get the exciting ones with the missiles and the cannons and stuff. The readers will love that, won't they?
Yeah, but you try flying to Dubai on one of those.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so the reason we've got you, firstly, we've got you on the show because you brought us gifts. You brought us a gift, haven't you? Which is very kind of. Thank you very much for that.
Where did you go to get us these wonderful presents?
I have contributed a few gifts from Japan, mostly Tokyo and Sapporo and Hokkaido there. So a bit of distributed, creativity to the team, the AA team.
So anyway, so you talk me through what was your itinerary for the holiday? Where did you go? We wanted to
initially sort of flying out of Sydney to Dubai, and that was with Cathay Pacific, and then over from Dubai to Japan. Into Sapporo, which I believe is.
So that's like where the mountains are, isn't it? They were skiing and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wintry, but it's quite. I would consider it quite regional. I mean, Tokyo is obviously the big city part, and then Hokkaido is sort of the less traveled North Island.
Yeah, it's the sort of the coldest part of Japan because it's the up in the north.
Brilliant. That's great geography there from Jake.
But they have like this annual ice sculpture festival in the middle of winter and things like that.
Know your stuff,
they do, yeah. He knew
so
that.
now you made me look stupid.
And Qantas will be flying to Sapporo again after taking a break during COVID. So be able to get there directly instead of connecting through wherever else.
Well, I definitely recommend it. I mean, the Sapporo itself makes, there are makers of beer and there's breweries and things. I love a good beer.
Beer? Forget skiing, I fall over. Beer? I can keep going on that. Excellent. Yeah.
And then you fall over.
And then back through Narita Airport, which is obviously in Tokyo, and through, changeover at transfer at Seoul and in South Korea and back to Sydney. Yeah.
Excellent. Right, now, before we go into your aviation experiences, Rob got us a gift, which is can you talk me through the gift for the readers, listeners, people?
Yeah, so this is something that T-Way Airlines, who does not sponsor this, from what I understand, this is not sponsored content, but this is a gift from T-Way that that I'd bought for the AA team.
Oh, that's very kind.
A little model jet, and I thought,
bought it on the way back through the in-flight catalogue.
Yeah, I did.
I've got to get some stuff for the Australian aviation team.
Yeah.
What have they got in this catalogue?
It was either this or like an empty paper cup, a crumpled one. And
an empty paper cup would have been too good for us, Rob.
And I thought, honouring also the late Chris Fenton, who was an avid collector of these, stationary style jets.
So this is also Pikachu themed, Pikachu from Pokemon. Did you get...
As opposed to Pikachu from Seinfeld.
Did you pick out a Pikachu one purely for us, or was that like the only option? Did you think, Adam would like a Pikachu?
Yeah, I think that was the only option. Just about. Yeah.
This is pretty good. Do they actually have a Pikachu aircraft though? Or is it just for?
I did not see one there.
I believe they do have one that's sort of painted in that special Pokemon livery.
Oh, I see. I see.
If you're, we can really get. With the sound of that crinkling, we can really get the ASMR audience.
Yeah. Well, we take them. They all count.
Yeah,
right.
add them in. But
hang on a minute. You keep talking.
I mean, this is all the rage. The Pokemon detailing stuff in Tokyo.
I can't see from.
I was trying to work this out. It doesn't seem to be on there. We should be able to guess with our. Oh, hello, 737-800. Scale 1 to 200.
You'd probably assume so.
Yeah.
But if you are a Pokemon nut, I remember on the flight they did have sort of the Pokemon headrests and things like that, and
It
detailed
does feel like
headrests.
a little bit of a stereotype to go, the Japanese, we're just like Pokemon.
Well, it's
You
South
know.
Korean.
Yeah, it's a South
airline.
Korean, basically a budget airline, a low-cost airline.
Okay, now I look even worse, don't I?
Yeah,
I've really
yeah.
messed that up.
Yeah.
And you also brought back this for those of you who are watching it at home, we've got this pin featuring a Mitsubishi Zero fighter, and you got that from the Imperial Navy Museum, I believe, in Tokyo.
Yeah, that's right. That's I mean, as an aircraft, world famous. Obviously on the wrong side in World War II, but you could do far worse in terms of an aircraft pin, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. I'm not sure where it would go on the shelves just yet, but I'm something of a pin collector myself, and appreciate very much the thought, Rob.
Something of a pin collector.
Something of a pin collector myself. Everyone has to have hobbies, Adam.
Yeah, can you? Right, I might need you to take over hosting duties. While I assemble
busy
this,
building.
Because I can't both host, I can't multitask, and I've got the engines. Oh, this is really good.
Well,
Yeah,
we've
just take
we've got a
over.
couple of shout outs. There was last week, you remember, Adam, we spoke about your media voice, or apparently lack thereof.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was more abuse, isn't it? It was
Yeah.
bullying.
We've had a comment on that video from at the Pink Pony,
Hey, well, that gives that person lots of credibility, doesn't it?
Yeah.
who says, if it's any comfort, you have a face for radio.
Horrible.
Can't see you reading the news if that is what a radio voice is, but some tonal variance is welcome.
Yeah, maybe you could do it in sort of mime or something like that. That'd be okay, maybe.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't think mime works particularly well as a method for presenting a podcast. We also wanted to give a shout out. There's an excellent. There's an army of sort of stock photographers and plane spotters on the internet that provide excellent free photos of planes on sites like Pexels and Unsplash and all of that. And we've there's one whose work that we've used a couple of times, Jeffrey Surianto, who has posted his work on Pexels. I believe he's based in Indonesia or somewhere in Southeast Asia. Done some great work. We had needed to find a picture of a Transnusa plane in Denpasar today. I think, Adam, the base is upside down.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was going to
yeah.
say.
So,
No, because it just needs to go the other way around.
Yeah.
no, it's the felt thing's got to go on the bottom. This is why Adam is a journalist
it?
and not an engineer.
You sure?
Yeah, because
Oh, I see.
That,
you're
that
right.
does make more sense. It would be quite funny if we have this thing completed and the wings are facing the wrong way. Or
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, we
yeah.
tried Microsoft Flight Sims. We can't actually fly and we can't assemble them. I mean, we're just stealing a living. We don't know anything about airplanes.
we're stealing valor. But shout out to Jeffrey Surianto. Shout out to all of the plane spotters, excuse me, and stock photographers who do such good work and allow talentless hacks like us to use their photos for free.
You make us look good, which is the name of the game. There's the name of the game. We've had any more abuse? Or can't not.
Well,
Before
I
we
think
get into-
I think Rob has some abuse to direct at Sydney Airport.
Yeah, so basically we've got Rob on the show because Rob does occasionally appear. For some reason, Rob's travelling the world and getting on more flights than me and Jake put together. So every 6 months when he's had one of his incredible adventures, he'll come on the show and talk to us about his aviation experiences. He's like undercover. Because he could go there and be like, I'm sort of an Australian aviation reporter, put me in business like me and Jake do. But he chooses not to because he's a man of integrity.
The celebrity face isn't there.
Yeah,
It doesn't
exactly.
get recognised. Yeah.
So talk us through your experiences. We want to know firsthand. You've been, on the front line.
So I will say, there were sort of two or three aspects that I found really interesting. And the first thing is when you're coming back through Sydney Airport, there's basically a glut of people that are waiting to go through customs. Now, you might say, 10 or 5 or 10 people, that's not, it's a 2-minute wait. I'm talking about more than 100 people in the line. The lines are sort of snaking back through the baggage areas with people waiting for their bags. You've got your bags, you're in the line, and it's just a weird process to go from international airports where that's not a thing, and then you come to Sydney Airport and there is such a wait that goes through that baggage area. The way that it was explained to me was that this occurs because there's a curfew and there's a lot of flights landing at once. There's a lot of people coming out at the same time, sort of, before noon occurred on a Sunday, and that this is considered business as normal. Is that something that you guys have come across? Can you give a bit of an explanation around that?
Jake will probably do a little bit better of a job, but what it basically boils down to, and I'm nearly there, by the way, with the plane. Looking at the Pikachu plane. Sydney Airport is effectively full to bursting. That's why they're building Western Sydney International. Not only is Sydney Airport full to bursting, but it's also perhaps more than more modern airports. It's very strongly affected by bad weather, which can basically cause it to go down to what is effectively single runway operations. I might budge the science here, but this is done to avoid crosswinds. So when crosswinds happen, actually, I've got an airplane I can demonstrate.
got most of it.
Aerodynamics,
So we haven't got a towel. So basically, when you have crosswinds, this causes the aircraft to go from sideways, right? Now, in reality, it's very unlikely that two aircraft would smash into each other, but to be very cautious, they therefore put it down to single runway.
Honestly, I think that plane does have bigger problems.
Yeah, it does. It's lost a tail. So basically, it goes down to single runway operations. What that does then is obviously cuts the capacity of Sydney Airport. I would imagine in half or almost in half at the click of the finger, which causes a huge amounts of delays and huge amounts of cancellations. That problem is kind of. What's the word when you make it worse, Jake? That is
exacerbated.
Exacerbated. That's where you're the clever guy. That problem is exacerbated by the curfew. So the curfew takes place every night. Is it 11 o'clock? 11:30. We'll get you on the Google. There's a curfew every night, and that is for the purposes of noise. We call them
11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So effectively, there's a curfew which is to stop the noise for the people.
The purring of the sky kittens.
The purring of the sky kittens for the people that live underneath. So you've got the dual issues of your capacity can be cut in half at the click of the finger, and there's a hard cut-off point to 11 o'clock. What they're trying to do, what the Labour government has suggested, is that when you have bad weather, there will be more flexibility with the curfew. But as it currently stands, you've got this curfew and bad weather and the curfew combined together. And what that will cause is like backlogs, or it'll cause everything coming together at once, maybe the next morning, or maybe in the kind of approach to that curfew, which basically causes chaos. And it's probably the chaos you experienced.
It was definitely chaotic. And if I might interject there as well, I hadn't heard much about this curfew, but it seems to come to mind that if you are, I'm assuming, buying a house or property next to the airport, that you should expect some aircraft noise.
Yes.
And I would have thought,
yes.
The greater good says to keep this airport open all night.
Yep.
And it's buyer beware if you buy there.
100% agree. 100% agree. And as you pointed out in the office earlier when we were talking about this, a lot of people, decent people, would actually buy an aircraft. Not
a lot of decent people would buy an aircraft. They tend to be very expensive.
Would buy a home underneath a flight path because they want to be under the flight path. And actually, a lot of people that get into aviation, that's how they got into aviation. They lived under the flight path. I don't know what I did for individual. I had a friend, Daniel Wright Green, at primary school. He lived under the flight path at Southampton Airport, and we used to get a bouncy ball, and we used to bounce it on the ground and see if we could get it to hit the undercarriage of the aircraft.
Caused so many disasters that way.
How did you get your job at Australian Aviation? Well, it's just a lifetime of guilt for bringing down a couple of planes. I like to think we hit it once, actually. I'm pretty certain we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway,
maybe the pilot caught it and threw it back or something. Ripped it out the window.
It was a Boeing.
He had his arm out the window because he was having a smoke.
Yeah, exactly. As you do. Anyways,
it was EasyJet, so
yeah,
it was Ryanair.
The point is that a lot of people want to live under the flight path, and they don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. Anyway, but that's effectively why we've got the curfew. And there's not much we can do about it, effectively.
I don't know why you've left kind of a notch in the tail there.
All right.
It does seem odd that if you do not like aircraft noise, why would you buy next to the airport?
Exactly. I totally agree.
Am I crazy there?
No, you're not crazy.
Am I mad there?
You're not crazy. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're a young family, you got some kids that are growing up, they need to be able to learn to deal with diversity. What's the other word I'm looking for?
Adversity.
Adversity.
So they should learn to deal with diversity as well.
Yes, they should.
I think you've got the rear little bits at the back
for the people not watching this on YouTube, this is really confusing because I'm building the Pikachu 737-800. So we're flitting between that and also talking about the wider aviation problems of noise and living under flight paths. What were you going to say about the plane?
It's embarrassing that I can't remember what these are called.
Ailerons or something.
They're called wings.
No, at the back.
The back, the tail.
Yeah, that's upside down.
Is it?
Yeah.
No,
look at the Killick one. They point up. They point up, not down.
Point up.
You've got those pointing down.
It does seem odd that they kind of point
wrong with this?
away
It's
from the
same.
aircraft. Like
What's
that.
wrong with it? I don't know what's pointing
No,
down.
these ones are pointing down rather than up.
I will say that is a particularly shiny model, and just I think they've done well
I
there.
might have got it stuck in here.
Yeah.
I think you might have to take the tail out.
Oh, God. Right, talk with dead air. We can't have dead air. We can't have dead air. It's a professional show. Just say something.
But your experience on T-Way, what was it like? Flying this low cost carrier all the way back from Seoul.
So I hadn't actually even heard of these guys before and booked it primarily based on price. And I found it really interesting. They were obviously a different operating system and procedure than airlines you might get in Australia. It was low cost. And so, that entertainment, you usually have a TV screen, a couple of movies on an international flight. That wasn't there. But what they did have instead of that is basically you would get a fold-down table that would have a space for your smartphone.
Like a device holder. You get those on the 737s that Virgin has, and I think the Jetstar new ones have device holders as well.
I mean, you've got your charger there as well. It was easy to plug in things. And I've got to say, as a low-cost idea, it makes a lot of sense. Most of the stuff I want to see is on my phone, not on, some movie that maybe I have a passing interest in. And so I thought that was quite good as a low cost. They were obviously serving Korean food, which is great. That was pretty good on a transfer flight. One of the biggest things that I saw that was different was actually in the airport. So usually when you get that notification, go to gate, that your flight is preparing, to go and you have to be there at a certain time. It's been my experience in Australia that when that time passes, they just shut the gate.
Yeah.
They have to. The plane has to take off. It's kind of like too bad, so sad. You didn't get there in time. They've left.
Yeah.
But when I was in this is Incheon Airport, which
Incheon,
is
I think.
in Seoul. These the T-Way Airlines and a few of the other airline crew would actually take a sign for that airline, whatever flight number it was, and they would have a bit of a run down through the airport and see if they could catch any of the people that were still
That's
lagging.
nice.
And they would run back through with them to the flight and basically hold it open. And I go, that is just an amazing thing to do. Yeah. And somewhere along the line, Australian Airlines maybe have lost that.
Well, I think it's the Sydney people, isn't it? Sydney people, everyone knows Sydney people are horrible. So they don't care, right? I reckon if you went to Brisbane or the Gold Coast, we'd have a Gold Coast here, Adelaide, Perth. They're decent true Australians. They do that. But I think in Sydney, they don't care, do they? It's just like it's tough, horrible.
I mean, it was the first time I've seen basically an aircrew member find someone who's late for their flight, not grab them, but basically run with them.
That's
back
lovely,
to the
isn't it? That's lovely.
I'd never seen that before. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, next week I will be off to Perth to visit my dear old grandmother for the first time in 7 years or so, 6 or 7 years. I will be flying the Virgin Australia 737 MAX 8 both ways. So I will be able to report back to you on what that sort of longer distance is like, and what Perth Airport is like, because they've got the new train line and everything. So
does your grandmother? Does she know that since she's last seen you've become like something of a minor celebrity in an industry? Is she aware of the monster you have become?
I try to be humble around my grandmother, or I would if I'd seen her in the last 6 years. we were going to go a couple of times, but
you got busy, didn't you?
COVID happened, and there was family emergencies and things like that. So it's probably about time to take a break so that Rob can get back to work. I mean, we've been talking for half an hour and we haven't got to the news yet.
Have we done half an hour?
It's 3:30 now.
Oh, we're in a lot of trouble now.
It took a long time to build the plane.
Yeah, I've built it now, by the way. Before you go, thank you very much for this. I've built it now. I've actually done a good job in the end, and you were right about the tail
that does
bit.
look better.
I often am.
Yes.
Yeah, the keen eye for that.
We had a couple of mishaps, but it looks really good, and this will take pride of place. Maybe we can have it. Keep talking.
I mean, that's you would say that's one of the only Pikachu ones you've got, Pokemon related ones.
Yeah, I can see Pikachu, Shaman, Squirtle, Eevee, Meloetta, Bulbasaur.
So you remember Meloetta?
Meloetta.
What season of what? That's not one of the original ones.
Meloetta first appeared in Generation 5. She was a mythical Pokemon.
God, you're so weird, aren't you?
I think you could only get her through an event. And she actually has two forms. If you in her original appearance in Pokemon Black and White, once you get Meloetta, you can go to this guy in a back alley in Castelia City, and he will teach you how to switch between her like her singy form and her dancey form.
You come out with some weird stuff, but that's probably the weirdest. You've essentially got like a photographic memory of a really niche Pokemon character, haven't you?
I'm sensing a podcast. Pokemon could be
Pokemon
possible.
Connect will tell Phil.
I will wish you best of luck in WA, Jake. And also, I think, that break that you've had is probably a good thing because from what I understand, Perth Airport has taken a long time to build.
Yeah, well, they've got that new rail link. For those who are curious at home, on the other side of this T-Way plane, there's Jigglypuff, Meloetta in her other form, Arcanine, Charmander, and another Pikachu.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. Well, tragically, Rob has left me to fend for myself with the madman that is Jake Nelson. Right, go on. What were you going to say?
By the way, Meloetta's two forms are the Aria form and the Pirouette form. It changes from Aria form to Pirouette form when it uses the move Relic Song, which you can learn in Castelia City, and changes back when you switch it out.
I was more of a Legend of Zelda guy, but whatever. Right, well, we have to talk about something about aviation. Or
Yeah,
news.
probably.
We'll have to.
Otherwise, those people who timestamp our videos on YouTube will get very narky at us.
Yeah, go on.
Let's talk about Koala Airlines.
Yes. No, I would say. Now, I do not want to pay Jake Nelson a compliment. Can't stand the man. But
he barely wants to pay me money.
But right. But Jake got an absolutely fantastic, humdinging, jaw-dropping exclusive this week. One of the best stories he's ever got. Actually, one of the best stories Australian Aviation has ever run. I think a proper piece of journalism. So I will just say that loudly. Jake, tell us a little bit. Firstly, go into the background of to what is or what we thought Koala Airlines is before you talk about your story.
So this is interesting. Koala Airlines, it's had a website for a while, and it's been saying it got a bit of buzz last year after Bonza and Rex collapsed because, I don't know, people found the website, I guess. And it's got all these, glossy renders of like 737 MAX 8s flying over cities with Koala Airlines livery, and it says, oh yes, we're going to carve out a unique niche and we're going to fundamentally differ from previous domestic entrants. We're taking a more innovative route to the low-cost carrier model and all of these things. We got a tip from a listener of ours up on the Central Coast, I believe. So I will shout him out right now. I will shout out our listener Ben, who Ben up the New South Wales coast, who has who gave us this tip about Koala Airlines. A winding up application has been filed against Koala Airlines in the Supreme Court of Victoria by a creditor, one would assume, called Wealth Creation Proprietary Limited.
They're probably the people that did the images of the planes.
Maybe. But they filed a winding up application against Koala Airlines, and this hearing is scheduled for January the 22nd. And what's interesting about this is that Koala Airlines, insofar as we can tell, has not done anything. It has a website. It purchased a company called Desert Air Safaris in 2019. It says it has this particular air operator certificate, but when I checked the CASA register, that air operator certificate does not exist. The closest entry number-wise is registered to the state of Western Australia. So I have no idea what Koala has been doing.
They did some interview. I don't know if it was the AFR, the Australian, whatever, 6 months ago.
It's Four Corners, I think.
Four Corners?
Four Corners.
Four Corners. Hang on a
Corners.
minute. Four Corners, which is meant to be like the panorama of the ABC. So they granted them an interview. Clearly, Four Corners did a background check.
They were talking about I think Bonza and Rex, and they got this guy Bill Astling, is the founder of Koala Airlines. He's to his credit, he's an industry veteran. He's been doing this for a while. He's done a lot of management stuff. Yeah. They got Bill Astling on Four Corners, and he said that it's. They're going to be filling niches unoccupied by the major domestic carriers. He says we've got a lot of support. This is a direct quote. We've got a lot of support. We've also got a lot of skeptics. I've had a few people who've said, have you appointed the liquidator yet? So I'll have to tell them we're putting him out to tender. But they've been very, very light on saying exactly what they plan to do.
But in my view, right, you don't like, and I don't. I huge respect to this person. I don't want to sound like I'm being unnecessarily nasty, but don't gob off about how you're going to change, Australian aviation, lowercase a. Unless you've got some planes, unless you've got an air operator certificate, anyone can talk a good game, and this is the issue. It's all very well and good. Anyone can set up a website in 10 minutes and get some renders done on ChatGPT, whatever it's called.
I think the renders have been around since before ChatGPT, and you can tell because the planes actually look like 737 MAX 8s, and all the engines are in the right place.
Yeah, okay, good point. But just it's slightly silly. So. We don't know exactly what this person's made the petition for the winding up order. Presumably this person or this company's owed money. They're not getting it.
Presumably.
Yeah. But it's absolutely extraordinary that Koala Airlines have given it the big talk up about how they're going to come and change aviation, not got a single airplane in the sky, not got any kind of operator certificates, presumably not really got any staff. And
I presume they don't have an air operator certificate. They say they have one, but again, I can't find
because
it.
if they'd have had a proper air operator certificate for big aircraft, we'd have known about it. CASA would have made a big, but they clearly don't. So they haven't got anything, and already they've not even got an aircraft in the air, and someone's trying to get them liquidated effectively, which was kind of what the joke of what he said. They've actually done significantly worse than Bonza. They've managed to go under before they've even gone up, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, they're not being liquidated or wound up yet.
No.
There's still this application to the Supreme Court of Victoria. There's a hearing slated for the 22nd of January, which today, as this is going out, tomorrow as we're recording it.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
so we'll have to keep on top of this.
We'll have to keep an eye on this. But we've discussed Koala Airlines a little bit before, but I think our attitude in the past has been, we'll believe it when we see it.
So, but you sent them an email or got in touch with them
they have a contact form on their website, so I sent them a question through that contact form. Haven't heard back from them at all. Bill, if you want to come and tell us what's going on, we'd love to hear from you.
And we don't want to be horrible. You can understand why we're skeptical.
We're keen to give the right of reply all the time. So, Bill, if there's something going on, if Koala Airlines is being wound up, if it's not, if you're getting planes, if you're not, we'd love to hear it. We love more competition in the Australian aviation sector. So, if you want to come on the podcast and actually, give us some idea of what Koala Airlines is.
But the problem is,
there's an empty chair.
But isn't in Koala Airlines, the Koalas are like the drop bears, the famous wind-up played on all British people, which somebody played this on me when I arrived. Obviously, there is no such thing as drop bears.
That's what they want you to think, Adam.
Yeah, this is why I was a bit confused.
You got to put the Vegemite behind the ears, and
but to be fair, I mean, everything in Australia will kill you. It just seemed plausible to me. Like you're just walking around one day and a pair just comes down and chokes you out.
Well, see, the thing with the drop bears is people say to put Vegemite behind your ears, but that actually attracts them. What you got to do is you got to walk around with a fork held above your head or like a knife.
Well, that's
so
horrible.
That when the drop bear jumps on you, it'll just get impaled.
So you're telling me on this is what meant to be a family-friendly podcast, but you suggest putting a knife on your head, walking round, I don't know, the streets or maybe the bush. So you're walking around the bush with a knife on your head so that if a cuddly bear were to drop on you...
Oh, drop bears are not cuddly, they're vicious.
It would just literally impale them, was your exact language. Presumably there's blood everywhere.
It's them or you, Adam.
Yeah, that's horrible.
If you don't want to walk around with a knife, a German army helmet from World War I will do just as well.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, it's a mate of mine had a mate whose friend's cousin's girlfriend's brother got his face chewed off by a drop bear.
Okay. Right, we went on a few tangents there. Anyway, it was a very interesting story.
Yeah. And like we said, Koala. Anyone from Koala, Bill, Asling, anyone, if you want to come on the podcast and explain what's going on, we're all ears. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. All right. What's next? What are we talking about next?
So we've had a story about Perth recently, actually, which you kindly
not this again. I hate it when you're
Adam.
like, oh, Adam, you need to do some.
But Perth Airport, where I'm going next week, is going to be has been doing quite well for itself.
Yeah. So one of the kind of ongoing storylines, if you want to call it, kind of post-COVID, has been how aviation has struggled to come back from COVID, or rather how it's done very well internationally. I think a lot of airports are either at pre-COVID levels or are slightly exceeding them, but they're struggling domestically. And one of the reasons we're struggling domestically is because a lot of it is due to a lack of business travel, which they believe is kind of both due to, people using Zoom more, and also this kind of cost of living crisis as well. So like more unnecessary trips are being cancelled. And so what that means is that a lot of airports around the country are kind of stagnating at like 94, 95, 96% passenger numbers. The one major exception to this has been Perth Airport, which is considerably bigger than it was pre-COVID. Two reasons for this. I think the biggest reason is that you've had a lot of interest in these FIFO or fly-in, fly-out flights to the mines. You've had a lot of airlines putting on extra flights. And this is because this is seen as a kind of a safe bet. And also Perth is kind of on the up in the sense that it's now the kind of, in many ways, it's like the flagship airport for Qantas. It's where their most flagship flights from Perth to London and to Rome and to Paris all fly from on their flagship 787-9 Dreamliners. Now, obviously, that will change eventually when we get Project Sunrise, but for the time being, this is now where all the investment is. You also get a lot of people that get on those flights who presumably will stop over in Perth, which is what I want to do the next time I do that. So Perth is kind of the right place in the right time, but they've now got to a point, you might have the article up in front of you, Jay. I don't know what percentage it is, but it's like 110% or something pre-COVID capacity. It's significantly up on last year, and last year was significantly up on pre-COVID. So Perth seems to be bucking the trend and going from strength to strength. This comes in advance of a big change to their terminal. I think they will want to put it all under one terminal.
Yeah, they're moving everything into the airport central precinct. They've got an airport hotel going up. They've got multi-story car parks. Yeah. They're really looking to position the airport as like the Western gateway to Australia. Like if you're coming into Australia from the west, from Joburg or from London, Paris, wherever, you're going to be coming through Perth. Unless you're on one of these Project Sunrise flights, or unless you're connecting through Dubai or Singapore or something. And so if this is your entry into Australia, they want it to be as easy as possible for people to get through Perth Airport to where they need to go. And
no offence to the good people who work at Perth Airport and to Perth Airport itself. When I got the London to Perth direct flight on a 787-9 Dreamliner with Qantas, the kind of, you have to obviously then wait to get your domestic service to Sydney. The area you're waiting in, a kind of a transit lounge area, I would say it's not horrible. There's nothing really there. And clearly this airport was not necessarily designed to host these flagship flights. It was not necessarily designed or envisaged to have the prestige it's kind of got now. So it is kind of long overdue.
And they've had some good news today as well. Perth is going to be the first airport in Australia to host flights from Transnusa, which is this Indonesian low-cost carrier that's sort of like trying to position itself as more premium. But Transnusa is going to be flying from Perth to Denpasar, which is putting it in competition with airlines like Jetstar, Indonesia AirAsia, Batik Air, CityLink. And so there's going to be another connection between Perth and Bali. And I will say it's a shame that Transnusa isn't flying to the Sunshine Coast, because that press release just writes itself.
The only thing I don't like about Perth or WA, people from WA love WA. I never shut up about how great Perth is. So the great Jordan the Great, this is sort of little round table. Jordan the Great, who built this studio, he's from Perth, never shuts up about how great it is. If you are listening, Jordan, we don't care.
It is a nice city.
It's all right. I've never actually got out of the airport, so
no, it's quite nice. Yeah. They've got a lovely bell tower. You can go to Rottnest Island and see the quokkas. You can the
drop bears.
The quokkas. They're very nice.
They have the little ones, aren't they? They're like one on the ground and stuff.
Yeah, they hardly ever eat anyone. And of course, Perth is going to be, I think March is going to be hosting this Roots Asia conference, which is going to make it a big hub for international airlines coming in to kind of discuss the state of aviation in the region. So Perth is an airport to watch.
On the up. Right, let's go for
on the down. Because sometimes airlines have to land there.
Yeah. Okay, welcome back. So we've probably got loads more to steam through news-wise. What we doing next?
Well, talking of airports in the West, we've had some...
Nice link.
Thank you. We've had some updates about infrastructure going out to Western Sydney Airport.
Tenuous, because one's the west of a city and that's the west of the country. So I see what you did there, but I don't think that was your finest hour.
We've gone from good link to not your finest hour. I feel betrayed. Just for that, Adam, tell us about this road.
Right, so basically, as you know, Western Sydney Airport will launch initially at the end of next year, the end of 2026, and it will be very much like a staggered launch. So at the first, it will be a fully operational airport, but it's going to kind of grow, I think, really until the end of a decade. And then after they got through that kind of initial growth of airlines and passenger numbers, over time, over the decades, the airport is going to physically grow, and eventually the plan is it will be significantly larger than the original Sydney airport. At the moment, though, a lot of the kind of a controversy or the argument is that the transport links aren't going to be good enough, or there's been a lack of necessarily foresight in making these things happen. So one of the biggest, the main things that they're going to do is to sort out this Sydney Metro Western Sydney Airport link, which we'll get to in a little bit. I think they're sprucing up some of the big motorways and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But what they've unveiled this week is a plan to upgrade a 2-lane road that runs from Liverpool to effectively to Western Sydney Airport, or to that area. So this is called 15th or 15th?
Avenue. 15th
Avenue. Now,
Wonder what happened to the first 14.
Right. Anyway, we don't know exactly what this upgrade is going to involve. There's very sparse details. It's one of those things where the politicians do a big unveiling and they take all the glory. They don't really tell you what's going on. However, we know that Liverpool Council have been pushing for this upgrade for many, many, many years. And there's all this nonsense where we want this like the next generation of roads. Like, it's a road, multimodal transport. But effectively what they are planning is some kind of futuristic road where you have futuristic cycle lanes. This is insane. But you're also going to have, and we talked about this earlier, didn't we, Jake? Basically buses that think they're trains, that think they're buses. So they're like buses that kind of look like rail, but they're not on tracks.
For those of you who live in Brisbane, the Brisbane Metro, which
It's not a metro.
It's not a metro.
It's not a metro.
It's a bus.
It's a bus.
Okay, it's a bus. Why are you calling it a metro?
It's a bus.
It's a bus.
It's just a big bus. It's ridiculous.
And like, if you want to, I'm sorry, if you want to put light rail in, don't have a bus that thinks it's light rail. Just
100%.
put some light rail in.
100%
Just
agree.
Put some light rail in.
100% agree.
On tracks.
100%
What are you doing?
Because in reality, it's just a bus. I mean, it's really modern, and all that means it's got USB sockets.
Yeah.
That's all it will be.
Then they look like nice buses.
Yeah,
but they're buses.
They're buses, aren't
Don't
they?
try to call them anything else. They're buses.
Completely agree. And if you're going to put in a bus that looks like a light rail, like, just put down the light rail tracks. I know in Australia, putting down light rail takes like 20 years and costs hundreds of billions.
Yeah,
for some reason,
I
don't
live near
know.
Parramatta.
Yeah, it's just absurd. Anyway, but effectively, they're going to do this big upgrade, which they believe is going to massively alleviate the eventual congestion. So at the moment, the road is quite congested, but obviously they're predicting a huge increase in the population around that area. And that's because half the point of Western Sydney Airport is not just to have a new airport, but to have a business hub and this new city of Bradfield, which is going to have lots of homes, etc.
The Aerotropolis.
The Aerotropolis. And so effectively the idea is that there is a shortage of homes, there is a shortage of sort of land in Sydney, so we are going to artificially create a new city, artificially create the business, and we're going to, over the long term, have a long-term vision of sort of funneling things out west, which does make absolute sense. But nonetheless, the argument was this was a kind of a long overdue piece of transport infrastructure. Obviously, this has also opened up a debate about the train link, the Sydney Metro, which is the kind of underground link. Initially, it will open when the airport opens, but it will initially go to St Mary's, which is sort of in the north of the airport. And then you will have to change and get on an old-fashioned train if you want to go into Sydney CBD. The New South Wales state government have committed to, it's some ridiculous wording, they've committed to looking at the business case for potentially extending the metro all the way to Sydney CBD, either from a north or from a south, effectively connecting it to two what will be existing metro lines. But the thinking is, as Jake told me earlier, at the start, perhaps a majority of people that go from Western Sydney Airport will be residents of Western Sydney, or will be people in New South Wales where that is the closer airport. So that's something that they hope could happen in sort of 15, 20 years' time.
And we do have a look at we've got a first look at the metro carriages for the Western Sydney Airport line. They've got a prototype out in a warehouse in Western Sydney somewhere. that apparently assembled from a flat pack, that's a hilarious.
Really?
Assembled from a flat pack in a Western Sydney warehouse. I'm imagining them putting this together with Allen keys and IKEA instructions.
Yeah, and giving up after 10 minutes and having a beer. I can't do it.
Why do we have these extra seats? But it's a full scale replica of one of the carriages, and it looks really nice.
It does
inside.
look very nice,
We've seen these pictures. It's going to have it's going to be wider, so like wider than the carriages on the Sydney Metro, which more room for luggage.
Yeah.
All of the current Sydney Metro seats is like a longitudinal seating, they call it, where it's like you sit along the edges of the train, facing to the side. You will have front and rear facing seats in these Metro carriages. There will be actually digital displays in there that show departure and arrivals, I think, for upcoming flights at the airport, so you know how far away your flight is.
Sensible, yeah, it's all sensible. I mean, they've basically taken out some of the seats. All the seats aren't there, so you've got more room for your luggage and stuff. You're gonna have telling you how far away from a destination. It all sounds very sensible.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing to have in an airport line. Hopefully they can manage to extend it all the way into the city, though. As we say, I understand it probably wouldn't be a huge priority, since people looking to fly into the CBD might be more likely to pick existing Sydney Airport. I will say I hope they look to connect it up to the Northwest Metro.
Would that be more convenient for you?
It would be more convenient for me, but also
shameless.
But also it would link it into the existing Metro network at the most convenient place, and it might, as we see on the maps, give Schofield's a Metro station, because it's kind of silly that the Metro line, as it is, finishes at Tallawong, when Schofield's, which has a train station, is like 10 minutes drive away. And if you want to get from Tallawong to Schofield's, it's, I understand, rather awkward with buses.
Well, I mean, I'm sure when the big wigs at the state government are making a decision, I'm sure that they will be like, well, we've got to consider what's easiest for Jake Nelson. I'm sure,
and so they should.
And so they should, Adam. So they should. Right, what we're talking about next? Hopefully something I don't have to talk about.
I think we're probably running.
We're running low.
We're running low on time, Adam. But I think
what time are we on?
It's 5 minutes to 4.
Mostly of which has been nonsense.
Most of what else is new? But we spoke last week, Adam, about some interesting diversions to Qantas planes heading to Johannesburg.
Yes.
And in further space/aviation news, there was a beautiful light show over the Caribbean.
Yes, so
over
true.
the past week, when Elon Musk's Starship exploded.
Which you really hate him, don't you? In the pantheon of people you hate, he's up there. Right, there's two different stories here, which are separate, though people try to kind of put them together. So we had a few days ago, or the end of last week on Friday, the 7th test flight of Starship. The Starship is basically the rocket that Elon wants to use to take humans to Mars. But the plan is that they are going to create lots and lots of prototypes, and they're going to send them up. And if they do well, they learn a lot. If they do really badly, they learn a lot. The first one that they sent up a couple of years ago blew up quite quickly, but they've kind of got better and better and better at them. The 5th test flight was the one where they managed to catch the first stage rocket booster, which actually flew back to the landing site and was grabbed in a kind of chopstick style movement. They failed to do that on the next test flight. The 7th test flight, which is the one that happened a few days ago, they managed to catch the first stage, but the second stage was a little bit of an issue in that it exploded. Bit of a problem there. Now, I would say he's for those of you not watching YouTube, he's grinning like he loves it. He loves it. So I would say, in Elon's defense on this, it was a new version of Starship, so this was a bigger version. So there was more chance of it going wrong this time. But nonetheless, when it blew up, it created this kind of spectacular explosion, because effectively it kind of came through the atmosphere and burnt up.
Yeah, what was it? A spontaneous, unscheduled disassembly or something like that?
Yes, some nonsense language that they used.
That's straight out of like Utopia or Yes Minister or something.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Oh, yeah, very good reference. Yes. But interestingly, there was all these incredible YouTube videos that were captured that went on social media showing it, and it was absolutely spectacular. One of them, incredibly, was on an aircraft. Like, one of the passengers who claimed in this YouTube video, he specifically sat there just in case this happened, which is rubbish. No, you didn't. But nonetheless, this person was on the ball, had their phone out, and you can see the debris raining down however many miles, like, to the side. I can't see how this is not very dangerous. Like, I know probably it's unlikely, but this thing was raining down around it. I'd have been, if Ben were on that flight, he'd have been crying. He'd have been crying and crying and crying.
And you saw on things like Flight Radar, a whole bunch of flights over the region were diverting or holding or it caused chaos for aviation because, you didn't want your plane flying into a piece of Starship.
Rightly. So now that's been one issue, and that actually builds on a more long-standing issue, which is obviously Starship is Elon's big plan to send humans to Mars, but his kind of common or garden typical rocket is called the Falcon 9. The Falcon 9 is what they use mostly to send satellites into orbit. And they use a variant of it called the Falcon Heavy, which I believe can send like humans to the International Space Station. But the Falcon 9 is a thing that's taking off every few days. The problem with this is basically that Qantas's flights from Sydney to Johannesburg effectively fly. Their flight path kind of goes where potentially Falcon 9s could basically could break up into the atmosphere. So basically they fly over the southern...
Or their rocket boosters, at least.
I'm meant to be an expert in this. I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about.
Hopefully the Falcon 9s are not themselves breaking up. That would be
effectively, they target potentially flying over the southern Indian Ocean because that's a fairly remote place. It's the safest place to do it. But these Qantas flights... obviously take a similar kind of flight path. Now, the problem is you would just say, well, why don't SpaceX avoid the particular time that these flights take off? The problem is that when you launch your rocket, you have like a launch window, which might be a few hours, it might be even longer, and it's very common for that launch window to be missed because of weather and such, and so on and so forth. So at the moment, it's very difficult to plan around this from both sides. What this means is that Qantas sometimes have to delay flights for many hours, presumably cancel them as well, just basically to be on the safe side, but they won't get hit by a piece of Elon's rocket. Now, this story came out in the Australian. And Qantas, far from playing this down, were really open about it. They're like, this is...
Yeah, we talked about this last week.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, well, what's going on? Why has this happened? So you've now got a situation where last week we had this situation where Qantas were like, we need to divert our flights because of this. And now we've actually seen the potential consequences of this happen. We've seen somebody in an aircraft, recording as the debris is flying around them. So actually, this is actually going to become, over the next 10 years or so, a legitimate issue. And it's something that aviation is going to have to consider because it's always going to have to play it safe with these things. But yeah, we saw almost a prediction of what could happen last week play out this week.
Yeah, and look, I say a lot of things about Elon Musk.
Not many of which are nice.
No,
none of which, in fact, are nice.
I do hope that he does become the first human being on Mars because... Yes. It is, as I understand, a one-way trip, and we would rarely have to hear from him ever again.
No, nice. Right, have we got anything else to talk about, or can we wrap up the show now?
Well, we should probably wrap up the show because it is 4:00, and I'm sure our listeners have places to be.
They probably do. Well, thank you. There you go. They're all losers anyway. Otherwise, why have they done an hour of this nonsense? Anyway, thank you very much.
Well, we say that, but we've been sitting here doing an hour of this nonsense.
Yeah,
so
we're even bigger losers. Yeah, we're even bigger losers. Anyway, Jake, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much for listening and watching. And we will be back on this show at the same time next week. But for now, from me and Jake, goodbye.
Goodbye.